Welcome back to rTech. In today's video, we're going to review the Ender S1 Pro from Creality. So this is my first venture into 3D printing. I have no idea and absolutely have no other printer other than a normal inkjet printer. So this is the first 3D printer I have, and I thought this would be a good idea to buy the Pro model because it's kind of supposed to have auto bed leveling and stuff. I've heard a lot of stories about bed leveling and how much it actually affects the actual print. So this one's the Pro model. There was an S1 which was released a few months back, I guess, maybe less than a year. This one has some additional features. It's got a slightly better print bed and some more features like different materials which it can handle. So that's the reason I actually jumped into this. And this is the packaging it came in, and it was actually bought from a website. So opening the box, it's pretty much a full box here, and you can see that they've actually thrown in a filament here, some PLA. I heard this is really bad quality, so do not use this, is what I hear from people. There is a small guide which they've given here talking about what materials and what kind of temperature and what kind of settings you need to use, including retraction speeds and stuff like that. So if you're new to 3D printing, you should do a lot of YouTubing and find out how it actually works. So there is a manual, user manual. It's not really going to help you fix this and assemble this because you really would need to download this on probably a tablet or a computer and have a look at it, because the manual is provided in an SD card which comes with this. A few stickers as well thrown in by Creality. There looks like some more parts here. It looks pretty complex when you first look at it, but I heard that this is actually assembled for the most part, and you would probably take about 10 minutes to put it together. So here's a bag with full of stuff inside. You can see small plastic bits here and there. So we'll come to that and we'll probably find out what it is for. Here's a small spatula. I'm sure this is for the extraction of your finished product. This looks like a filament holder with a sensor as well. So this one comes with a filament runout sensor. It's an optical sensor. I've read about it, that's the reason I'm talking about it. And this is again the spool holder. That's the magic part here. It's got all metal extruder, and it's supposed to be helping in preventing jams, because this can print up to 300 degrees. So that's what makes it a Pro model. So you can use different materials, and this one's supposed to be really strong and very good at printing as compared to some of the previous models. It does look a little delicate, so you'll have to be a little careful handling this. It's pre-fitted with a 0.4 mm nozzle, and that's the CR10, I think it's called a CR touch sensor on the left. And there are two fans on this particular model, and that's the 0.4 mm nozzle. All these wires look really delicate, so just be careful when you handle this, and there are some inputs there. Okay, let's open up. So that's the bed below over there, and it looks like the screen is actually put under this foam here. Yep, and this is what makes it special. It's got a little better screen as compared to the previous models. Everything needs to be fixed, and it's quite modular, so you can do it yourself. So this looks like one of those phones from the 90s. So some warning messages about power supply. So that's the PEI based bed over there. And unfortunately, they've thrown in a cable which has 16 amp plug. So it's practically useless, this cord. So you'll have to probably find another one. Any computer cable should do for this one. This consumes about 300 odd watts. So a computer cable should be fine. A good quality one, of course. This is the base plate. I'm just trying to be a little careful. So the gantry comes with a light at the top. So that's again an additional feature on the Pro model. So most of the things are actually assembled, so that's quite a few steps lesser than some of the other printers when you buy them in the market. So that's the gantry, and this is the Z-axis. So this comes off, and that's the bed at the bottom there. So this is a magnetic sheet, so you can actually take off this surface from the bed below. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best way to get this whole thing outside, and finally it's off the box. So here are some connectors. It all looks like some basic, very delicate connectors. So you'll have to be real careful when you're actually putting this together. And that's the rear of this unit. It's also got a power button there. I'm just running through this. I mean, if you are new to buying a printer like this, this is what you actually get out of the box, just to give you the experience. So all these adjustment knobs at the bottom are already pre-fixed. I heard some of these are actually fallen off in some models. Luckily for mine, it was fine. But there was a bit of wobble, so I had to use a spanner and kind of get this whole bed a little tighter. So that's the magnetic PAI sheet, which kind of helps you get off your prints very easily. And the stepper motors at the back. More connectors on other sides as well. So this whole unit is actually put in an injection mold based setup. And that's the cable for your extruder. And this looks like it's actually got a power cord which can't be removed easily. So in case you want to replace one of these, it's going to be difficult. And some more power connectors actually protected with some heavy tape there. More warnings, and it also has some sort of a label on every motor saying which axis it supports. And this PI sheet really sticks really hard on this hotbed surface. Nevertheless, it's a welcome addition. Kind of helps you take out your prints easily. At the front, you have the USB-C port and you have an SD card slot. So just one of them. And on the right, there is some space for some tools. You can place all the spanners and all the kinds of maintenance things you want to keep with this printer. They've actually sent you quite a lot of things along with this. I'll show you in a moment. And it's a nice little addition here, so it snaps right in. And this is the front of the printer. You also have a small adjustment knob. Okay, so placing the gantry is all you need to do, to be honest, in terms of getting this assembled as a whole printer. So it's as simple as just placing it on top and it actually balances itself. But you'll have to put these screws at the bottom to actually fasten this Z-axis on it. So it's fairly simple, and I'll just show that in a moment. And you'll also see below the bed, you have more rollers there. So one of these had to be tightened because there was a small bed wobble. So these are the screws you have here, different combinations, very well labeled on the package, so you shouldn't be confused at all. So these go for the extruder, I'm guessing. And also there's another bag with a lot of other stuff, mostly tools. So you have a lot of Allen keys. This is to clean your nozzle, and that's the toolkit. It's very basic. There's also a small cutting tool. That's the extra nozzle and your SD card along with an adapter. There's also an additional sensor kit which they've provided, and this doesn't have to be installed apparently, so you just have to keep it there. So a list of main parts, just make sure that you have all of this inside. So this helps, this detail really helps. And assembling this, as I mentioned, is very simple. Just have to put this gantry on top of the slots there. So they've got like 4 sets of screws which needs to go in. Just fastening this whole video so that you can see how easy it is. And all these need to be really tight, and you need to fasten them in such a way that both of them are equally fixed with the right amount of torque, because you can't have one edge of this tighten and the other one loose. So just make sure that it's all fine. It's standing fine and there's no discrepancy in the layout of it. Just make sure you put the other 2 screws and fasten them as much as you can. Do not over tight. And you can't. I mean, these tools are really basic. I mean, you really can't put a lot of force on these things. So yeah. So now it's time to put the extruder and the hot end together. And the best part is this whole thing actually just sits there, and you just need to fasten those small screws on the right side of the unit. So I just took a chance, and I realized that this whole thing just slots in, and all you need to do is just fasten about 4 screws on the other side. And it was as simple as that. You still have to be careful though. I mean, you don't want this to fall or have any kind of dents. So these are the screws that actually go there. And like I mentioned, it's very simple to have these fastened. So this is the spool holder. and it's actually got a filament sensor which is built into this particular setting. So you have to be very careful with this spool holder, and you should ensure that it doesn't fall off accidentally, because that's going to destroy this filament sensor wiring, which is very delicate. And you'll have to place this right in the middle of this whole gantry, because it's not going to reach otherwise. So there are a lot of connections to the stepper motors. There's also some cutoff sensor. You'll also see that the main extruder has this long cable with an additional slot for you to kind of protect it. Like I mentioned, these cables are always going to be on the way. You have to adjust and find the right way to adjust this such a way that it doesn't come or hit anything else while it's functioning. So you'll get used to that as you use the printer. So on the left side of the printer, there are 3 slots. The middle one's for the expansion slot, which is actually for the light, and the right one's for the filament sensor. And all of these are actually taped to the gantry. So you got to pull them off and then insert them here. So all the slots will actually be full, and that's about it. There's another small plastic solution they've actually sent through. This is for you to actually insert the main extruder's wire, because it's going to be on the way all the time. So they've given an ingenious way of kind of inserting this into the slot here, and there's a marking there. So if you put this wire over here, it's measured so that it doesn't come in the way while the printer's in operation. So just connecting the spool holder, and we should be good to go. So this is how the printer looks. It's not perfect, the bed is not aligned, and I'm sure I've made a lot of mistakes as well on the way. There's a power supply button at the back, so make sure that you have the voltages selected appropriately. And the screen thing, I thought they'll make it easier for us to just place it or slot it in, but you have to actually use screws to kind of fasten this on the side. So there are about 3 screws. So once you do the wiring, there's a small holder for the wire, and then you need to place it on the side and then add 3 more screws to fasten this so that it's secure. Time consuming, but kind of makes it a stronger proposition to hold it on the side. And that should be it. So some good protection for your display over there. The power supply is, like I mentioned, a computer power supply plug, so you can use one of those. If you have a 16 amps plug, you can use that directly. And let's put this thing on. So as soon as you turn it on, this touch sensor, the bed touch sensor, starts functioning. Screen comes on in about 3 seconds. So I just wanted to show you the animation, but I can show it to you in the end. And there's a nice light, purple colored light on the touch sensor. I think it's called the CR Touch. And honestly, I really didn't want to read a lot and start using this. So I just quickly run through the menu and just wanted to see what is actually available here and if I could understand anything. Like I mentioned, for me this is new. I've never seen a 3D printer before. And the light, this is really creative. This kind of helps you watch your prints, and it's a high quality light. It doesn't flicker, and there's a lot of thought put into it. And the color of the light is also very nice. It's not just a white light. It's sort of warm white, kind of gives you a good vibe. So I've seen a lot of videos, and they always mention that you can use post-it paper to kind of check the leveling. So your nozzle is just supposed to kind of have that slight resistance on this paper when it's touching this bed. And that's the kind of gap you need to maintain, right? And when you actually use the auxiliary method to level this bed, you can actually place this in different positions on this square bed and make sure that you have this alignment ready. I'll come to the actual working of this towards the end of the video. You can see more on that. So you also have auto bed leveling, and it kind of does a good job, but I always hear that you have to do a manual bed leveling before you jump into that. So this is how the auto bed leveling works. So once it reaches 100%, it kind of aligns itself back and kind of brings the whole thing to the middle of the unit, and it settles down there. So that's how it actually stops once you're finished with bed leveling. So these are the adjustment knobs. Thankfully, they have provided some good quality springs. I've been hearing a lot of complaints on the older models. So the knobs were actually in place. I still had some issues with alignment in terms of how exactly this was. There was some clearance issue towards the rear of the bed. Anyway, so let's move on to the software. So you do have to install Creality themselves give you a slicer tool. So that's actually present in the drive, the SD card which they've given you. And this one is built generic for the 4.4mm nozzle. So in case you change your nozzle, I wasn't able to change the nozzle in this, the size of nozzle. So I'm just opening one of the prints to show you how quickly you can do it. All you need to do is just load one of the designs, download it from Thingiverse, or you have one of the ready-made ones on your SD card. So this is how it would look. And once you keep the settings ready, all you need to do is just click slice. It'll ask you to save this file on the SD card. As simple as that. That's it. So this is a version of the Creality software. I heard the Ultimaker Cura version is much better, so I downloaded that as well. And that certainly had some more additional features. I could change things like nozzle size, and obviously this one's actually built for this printer, but the Cura from Ultimaker, that one doesn't actually have a profile for the S1 Pro as of today. So you'll have to actually put it as a normal Ender 3 and then customize it. So I'm opening that as well just to show you how different it looks. It's actually very similar, but it looks like it's a higher version of what you get from Creality. Yeah, so it's pretty much similar. The interface is very, very similar. And similar steps as well. I've already used the printer quite a few times, and for me what works is a higher initial printing temperature and a slightly higher bed temperature and really good leveling, because leveling has it all. I mean, there's nothing else you need to worry about if you have everything else in place. If you have the bed leveling done right, you don't have to do anything else. You just have to go and click print. Let me take you through the menu of the actual printer screen. Okay, this is how the menu looks on the small little screen that we have on this printer. That's the boot animation. And it's quite fast. I mean, it just takes about 2 or 3 seconds and it's straight away into the main menu. Let me just get this into focus. Okay, the screen is a little crappy, so there's not much I can do about that. So this is the home screen. It gives you an indication of the temperature right on top of the nozzle, the heat bed, and also tells you what's the current speed of the fan and your Z-axis clearance. So you have the print option. This is basically pulling up data from the SD card, which is inserted into the machine. And these are some of the prints that are preloaded, as well as some of the ones which I've actually put in. So the ones without any numbers are the ones which I've actually put in here. For example, these are the ones I loaded. These are the preloaded ones. And you can just click on any one of them and click on play, and it'll start printing that immediately. So I don't want to do that right now. So you also have this scroll menu to see. This list is like a scrollable menu. So since it doesn't have a wheel, you have to press the up and down arrows here. You also have this ready button, which basically shows you the movements. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but you can move your Z-axis based on the instructions here. So if you press the Z up, it's actually going to move up the gantry on the Z-axis. So the whole nozzle moves up if you want to clear something on this. You also have the movement here. It's actually defined based on the axis. All right, and you also have in and out. So what this did, and what I learned from this so far, is that you can actually decide how much of filament you want to extrude or push out using this feature. So for this, remember, you'll have to actually preheat your nozzle before you do that. Right now the nozzle is about 22 degrees, so you need to really heat that up to kind of make these two work properly. Let's go to the next menu, and here is what you can do with all of the functions on this particular printer. So you can change the fan control here. You can switch on or switch off the fan control here. You can preheat the PLA. You can increase the nozzle temperature, the bed temperature here, and you can also preheat ABS. So you can actually set the speed and then go to OK to this. Let's see, what else do we have? So you can go to settings here, and here this is a key feature. I mean, you can press on level where it'll actually start. You can hear the noise already. It's already moving. So you have two options. You have the auto level and you have the manual auxiliary leveling. So you can use any one of these options to start leveling the bed. I would suggest always start with the auxiliary leveling and then go on to auto leveling before you start printing. So this is the manual leveling mode. So it will move to these positions, whichever number you click on. You can set the height of the Z offset here. I don't know why, but my nozzle always gets smashed into the bed, and I'll have to lift it up and then bring it up every time I print. So you can also choose the language. You have ABS setting. You also have the PLA settings. By default, this is the setting it has. Then you also have settings for different things here. I mean, I haven't touched this menu, so I would recommend, unless you know about it, not do anything. You can see the firmware settings over here. Sorry about the display. Yeah, this display is actually cut off. This is all it shows. So I thought it's my camera which is out of focus. So that's all you have in this little screen. Most of the other settings can be done in Cura. Okay, coming back to the printer. So this is ready to print right now, and I'm actually selected one of the default prints. So this is one of my first prints. Believe it or not, I haven't done any kind of adjustments. I just made sure that the bed is quite level. And I just selected default profiles. So you can still see filaments and elements falling all over the heat bed. And you also are advised to clean this with isopropyl alcohol before you do anything. There are a lot of things you need to do for other materials like PETG and stuff like that. But I didn't use any of this. So you just need to ensure that the temperature is right, and this is how it actually started. It's not perfect. I can see that it's going to make a lot of mistakes. And these things are meant to fail. I mean, there's always a high failure rate when you get started with these things. You can already see the nozzle is actually filled with a lot of filament. It's probably because I didn't know what I was doing. So I just put the light on and off just to see if I can see anything, but I can't. So it's printing the rabbit right now, and I'll show you how it actually goes. Thankfully the bed was actually level. It wasn't perfect, but it had a good amount of level to it. I did see that the paper was actually having the right amount of resistance in all 4 corners. And these things take a lot of time to print. So after a couple of minutes, I did come back and check the print, and I was happy to see that it's actually making some progress. And I had issues of the filament wire getting off the spool a lot of times, but otherwise everything else seemed pretty okay, and I could see something getting into shape. And again, problems with the filament coming off the spool. And after a couple of minutes, I was so happy to see this rabbit coming into shape, and it was looking quite nice. You can see those marks on the bed right there. That happened because I tried putting a glue stick on this, because someone told me that on YouTube, saying that you need to use glue stick, otherwise the prints won't come off and you're going to spoil this bed. And I kind of couldn't get that sticky stuff off this, so I had a lot of trouble cleaning that off. But thankfully it's actually fine now, and this was the end result. The rabbit came out perfect. And this is generic PLA which I bought from the vendor, and you can still see it has some issues in some areas, but overall I think it would be about 80% good. And after that I started printing a lot of things from thingiverse.com. This was a webcam cover. Again, it wasn't perfect and it really didn't work, but I was so confident. I mean, the first print lets you, the first good print will actually help you get confident printing other things. And I also had a little bit of red PLA which I kind of used, and this is where I got a little overconfident. I thought, since I can print the rabbit well, let me print something more complicated. So there was an octopus which I started printing, and believe it or not, it started printing really well. I thought it's doing pretty good. I was surprised to see that it actually prints these arms separately initially, and after a moment I noticed that there was some stringing happening on one of the arms, and that was completely destroyed, but other parts of this was fine. So that's what probably told me that I need to do a lot more work. I need to do a lot of alignment work, check the whole thing again, and some stuff was actually destroyed, but nevertheless this was printing quite well. And in the end, this is what I got. I think I got about 7 arms right. The rest of them were destroyed. There's also a small piece which came out. And surprisingly, PLA is very easy to remove from this bed, so you don't need to use any tool to get this off, unless you're using some other material. So those arms are actually quite nicely printed. I stopped the print. Of course, this is not the full print model, so I just wanted to check how good it is. So again, another failure. So this is bound to happen. I'm sure everybody's going to see this for the first time, or the first few times. So this was a failure, but I did notice that this the hinges were perfect in this. So the interlocks were quite strong. Then after a couple of tries, I noticed that having the bed level, I kind of removed all the knobs and I put them back together. I saw a lot more videos to see what can be done to fix this issue, and there was no much of a solution difference. Everybody spoke about the same thing: bed leveling. Unless you have issues with stringing and stuff like that, which you need to play around with the Cura tool. If you want the prints to stick well to your surface, you just need to make sure that you have the bed leveled. You need to have a slightly higher temperature of about, say, 210 to have the prints stick. And I got pretty good results out of it. And this was one of the standard prints which I got out, and it looked pretty okay. Of course, I didn't print the whole thing again because there was a power failure, so I had to stop it. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And then I finally started printing an Alexa dot holder, and this was a complicated print because it had very little surface volume to stick onto the floor, but it still worked fine because the bed was absolutely level and I used the right temperature settings, and this one printed out really well. And I was really happy because after this I realized that I know what I'm doing, and there's nothing which can go wrong if you do the settings right. So from this point onwards, printing wasn't a problem at all. And there was a lot of wastage. I mean, if I show you the kind of things that I've printed, and there's a lot of things that went to waste. A lot of plastic. But ultimately, I was happy to see something coming out really well. So, like I said, you will have a lot of failures. There's a lot of wastage, but it's going to happen. But you will learn and you will do better. There are a lot of channels that help me out. I mean, there are a lot of videos and tutorials out there. There are a lot of communities you can join, and they really help you kind of get this into shape. And a lot of support from the online community that helps you set up the printers. And I really like that part. So that was the Ender S1 Pro. Let me know what you think about this printer in the comment section below. So you can, if you know 3D printing and if you know how to model something, you can actually start printing prototypes and come up with your own designs. There's a website called as Thingiverse which lets you print a lot of home utilities, useful stuff which you can use to kind of print in your house. You can print things which you don't get in the market for outdated gadgets, even your cars. So that's where you actually find these 3D printers useful. And you also have different materials you can use to print this one. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe, share it, and I shall see you on the next one. Thank you so much for watching rTech. I will see you on the next one.